Hi everyone, welcome to the Movieception Show. My name is Fariba, and today let's talk about Cocaine Bear. So the movie just came out. I actually saw it a couple days ago, so it's been a while. I've had the chance to really take in the whole film, and let's just really talk about just the concept itself because it is such a really bizarre concept. Just to like the title itself really gives it away. It's about a bear that is under cocaine bear, right? And I recall when the trailers came out for it, like instantly I'm just thinking about this is going to be a film that's going to be silly, it's going to be ridiculous. Like that's sort of the vibes I was getting out of this film, and in a way that despite how bizarre it is, it was very intriguing. Like the hook of it really gets your attention, like, oh my god, this is a film about cocaine bear. Oh my god, like this is going to maybe change sort of how the outlet is in terms of bizarre, ridiculous films like this, right? Like, and when you look at the trailers, right, you're getting sort of this vibe that this is going to be a comedy, that, it's going to have some really elevated levels of silliness, ridiculousness, probably perhaps levity. That's all we were thinking about in terms of this film. And as much as the fact that it is a very, very bizarre concept, I mean, it's something that I was really excited to see. So I finally had the chance to see it a couple nights ago, and I was pretty surprised how, despite the trailers really showing off as something that's far more silly, it was actually far more sophisticated in what it was trying to present in terms of its story. Now, granted, it doesn't take away the fact that this film is fun. I mean, the star of the show, without a doubt, is Cocaine Bear. Like that's who it is. And I mean, I appreciate the fact that that remains the main focus of this film, because of course, like, if you're giving out a film that is literally called Cocaine Bear, you're expecting it to be a film about Cocaine Bear going on a rampage and really just being hell for everyone. And it does really do that in a sense where it's like, yeah, Cocaine Bear, it's really kind of just showing how much of a danger it is, how much of a high stakes it is, but also like being the show, the spotlight of it all. And this film really does a great job of really doing that, showing that, okay, yeah, as much as the fact that it is a cocaine bear on a rampage, it is really fun. Like, you're seeing how all these characters are feeling so miserable. Just seeing again how like things really uncover about the bear. There's things about this bear that as you get more and more into the film, like, you start to realize, oh my god, I did not expect that to be the case. There were some really surprising moments I did not expect, and I think that that's what made this film pretty fun, is that of course Cocaine Bear was the spotlight. Like, I mean, there's no denying that this film is fun. This film is ridiculous, but this film really has its moments where, yeah, it's really showing the levels of who Cocaine Bear is, and it doesn't really, and it does not, like, it really meets expectations and does not lose any, sort of vibes out of who Cocaine Bear is. It sticks its landing in terms of really showing the main concept of this film. Like, as long as the main concept is really being, alluded onto the big screen, that's all that matters, right? And I think that's why this film is so fun. It's so entertaining. That, I mean, as much as the fact that the concept might seem bizarre, it still is really doing what it needs to do, which is showing Cocaine Bear as the highlight. Now, with that being the case, right, at least for one thing, they do really, enhance who Cocaine Bear is, making him the center of the attention. I think that it's not the most perfect film. This film is very flawed in ways that, I mean, I cannot even express. Like, for one thing, like, as much as the fact that Cocaine Bear really goes on a rampage, really shows the visual, the cinematography of what Cocaine Bear is able to do, in terms of like what's happening and around the film, like, in trying to like put the pieces together and trying to fill in the blanks of how to really get the story going and trying to relate it back to Cocaine Bear itself, I would say that the actual story and just like having to really have all these characters is where it kind of falters a little bit. So for one thing that I was really surprised about is that a lot of these stories are actually kind of individual stories that eventually will converge into one by the final act of this film, which is totally fine. It's not like that's unusual. Like, we've seen in so many films like Magnolia, where somehow, yeah, they all have separate stories, and yet they eventually do kind of relate in some ways, and then even at one point they all meet together in the one final battle. And that's what this film tries to do. But in terms of really showing the humanistic side of what's going on, is where I feel like the story kind of falls a little flat. And I think that this is maybe the most hardcore case for Carrie Russell's side of the story. I felt like her stories were things weren't as interesting. It felt like it was just a bit dull. It just didn't have a lot going on. It didn't really give us the idea of, okay, this is a mother who is trying to find her daughter, and yet there is this crazy bear on a rampage, really just, doing a lot of, awful things. And I just wasn't really getting a lot of that in sort of the humanistic side of the story, especially Carrie Russell's. Like, I feel like this is her side should have been the one where it's like we should have really connected with the character, but yet it just really felt bland. I think the one side of the story that did sort of felt a bit better in some of the subplots is probably the side where we do see O'Shea Jackson and Alden Ehrenreich. Sorry, I mispronounced that, but Alden's character and O'Shea's character, and how they have their whole situation trying to find the cocaine bear, trying to find the cocaine, because their story was far more related to what was going on with the cocaine bear story. Because let's be honest, like, they're trying to find the bag of cocaine. That's pretty clear. And I feel like their story is far more and well connected to what was going on. And so I felt like their side of the story was a bit more fleshed out compared to Carrie Russell's, where it was just kind of there and it was just trying to fill in the blanks. Because let's be honest, this is a 96-minute film. There isn't really a lot going on, so I could see why it's like, well, they had to kind of force upon getting Carrie Russell's story into this film to, really trying to make this at least a more of a feature-based film. And that's already the fact that this film is really 96 minutes. So there isn't a lot of things going on in this film aside from, Cocaine Bear. And I think that this film does really struggle in trying to set up the structure of its story and setting the pieces together. And like, again, I think that the one part where we do see O'Shea and Alden's characters and trying to find the cocaine was well fitting for what was going on because of the circumstance, because they are dealing with the cocaine bear. I think that this is where the story should have been far more fleshed out, whereas Carrie Russell's character didn't really have much to do, although it does give a bit more of like that motherly feeling of what's going on. And like, in some ways it does show a comparison between Carrie's character and the bear in some ways. If you watch the film, you'll know why. But it does give a bit of that vibe that, well, it does make sense because you're kind of doing this parallelism between two different entities, two different animalistic people or species, and showing how like they're all sort of similar. And I wish that they had been a bit more focused on that, because that was something that I felt like really missed the mark a little bit until like we get to the final act. I think the final act does redeem a lot of things that are going on, but in terms of the story, right? But overall, I felt like some of the subplots just didn't really connect to the main premise of this film, which is Cocaine Bear, and trying to make it so that, yeah, there's a lot going on. There's humans who are now in danger, and yet I would have loved, at least for the subplots to really just make sense, be more fitting, just to make it a lot more of a sophisticated film. And it's not like this film isn't really sophisticated. Like, I was really surprised how sophisticated this film was. Like, it still had some of the more developed things going on in terms of who Cocaine Bear is, what's going on. Like, I think one of the things I do think that the film does struggle with, of course, is the pacing. Like, I felt like the exposition of this film and trying to set up what is going on takes a bit too long, and I feel like that may have contributed to some of the imbalance of the story structures that we see in this film, and especially the developments of the characters, right? Like, the pacing I felt was a bit off, where I think the exposition was a bit too long than it should have. I feel like the actual big parts didn't start to really kind of unleash until the last 45 minutes of the film. I feel like the last 45 minutes of the film felt like the more fun version of what we were seeing. It was very entertaining seeing the last 30 to 45 minutes of this film, because that is what we were trying to get. Whereas, like, I think the exposition, like setting up not just the first act, but I think that even the second act was kind of a bit not as well developed. I think that, again, it takes a bit too long to really get into the gist of what's going on. I feel like I was just watching there like, hey, let's just get into this film already. Let's get to the big parts of what this film is going to be about. What do you market it as, what this film is going to be the main focus of? And I feel like, again, like, the beginning stuff was just kind of like, okay, fine, I get it, we're trying to get the exposition of it, but let's at least keep the ball rolling, because I want to see what this film is supposed to be about, which is Cocaine Bear, right? And I think that, again, like, regardless of the fact that this film does have a lot of flaws in terms of the technicalities of its writing, the structure of how it's trying to set up the film, the fact that it's trying its best to really get some of the more humanistic perspective into this film, because, again, this is about Cocaine Bear. And I mean, let's be honest, like, as much as the fact that this is a really fun film, like, I don't even think the bear itself really featured for too much of this film, aside from maybe about like a good 30 to 40 minutes of this film. So it's like, it is a bit, we do get less of what we wanted, which I was like, it's like, okay, well, this is a great film. This is a fun film. This is really entertaining, but like a lot of things just didn't feel as meshed in as well as I would have wanted it to be. But but yeah, like I mean overall, like this is a fun film. I think that there's no denying that. I think that it at least makes me a bit more excited to see kind of like what could happen, because the way that the film does end, like it does keep things open to like possible sequels. And I mean, one of the things I am a bit surprised about, that this is actually based on true story. I actually did end up looking up the story about Cocaine Bear and the history behind it, and how this is actually based on a true story that happened, I believe, in Kentucky. So the same setting of where this film is, and apparently there was a situation where, you know, they do have like, you know, some cocaine did end up in the wilderness, the forest. Cocaine, a bear found the cocaine and consumed it, and I mean, how it ends up, it's a bit different from how it ends up in the film. Like the film does take its own liberal creative decisions and how it's trying to execute this film, because again, I mean, yeah, it's based on a true story, and I think the actual true story stuff is maybe about the first 5 to 10 minutes max of what this film is. Like I think that's where all the biographical parts of it is, and that's about it. Like the rest of this film, it's pretty clearly fictional. It's really made up just to really set up a whole new sort of, not just genre, but just storytelling of like what to do. Because I mean, again, we've always talked about how Hollywood hasn't been able to find new stories. I think that Cocaine Bear could be this new sort of era where it's like, okay, well, let's take things very far-fetched, let's take things to a whole new level, let's make things far more entertaining by having a cocaine bear. And it, I mean, at the end of the day, as much as the fact that I would have wanted to see more out of this film, like I felt like it fell a little short on giving us the best part, which is Cocaine Bear. I do think that this is a very fun concept. I think that it was fun, entertaining what it does present. It does make me a bit more excited about the fact that there could be more sequels. Like, who knows, it could be continuing off with Cocaine Bear. It could go to another whole species of animals and dealing with them. That, I mean, there's a lot of ways that they can go around with trying to continue off this sort of this the whole storytelling. But overall, like as much as like that, I did feel a bit more underwhelmed with like how it presented the story, let alone showing the ridiculousness, silliness that I was hoping this film was going to be, like showing that in a more fleshed and full-fledged level that it didn't necessarily go through, but it still had its moments. I still think that this is still a fun film. It was very bloody. It was very, you know, violent, as I expected to be. It's what we were getting out of this film, and I think overall it is a fun film. I mean, there's no denying that it really emulates what it's supposed to be. It really captured its title the way it's supposed to, and yeah, I mean, I wish that there were things that could have been done better, especially in terms of the other subplots and just the structure of setting things for this of this film. I think overall it's still fun. It doesn't take away the fact that this film really does, you know, really emulates what it's supposed to be doing, and I really enjoyed it for the most part. So that's all I have to really say about it. I think that's really sums up how I feel about Cocaine Bear, and I hope that we do get more films, or at least some version of it, because again, this is a really fun concept that I think can be played around more and more, and hopefully then if they do more of these films, maybe we'll get far more of the silliness of what this film should have had, and maybe they can continue it off. Like I felt like I really wanted more than I really just wanted more, and hopefully if there is supposed to be more sequels, we'll see more of that. But that's all I have to say about Cocaine Bear. Have you seen it? Have you seen it in theaters? Have you not? If you have seen it, what are your thoughts overall? Did you enjoy it? Did you had a lot of fun out of it? Are there things that do you agree with kind of what I've been saying in terms of like the subplots just not really meshing in, or do you disagree with me? Do you think that they actually worked out for what it's supposed to serve? What are some things that you did not like? Did you like the concept itself? Like, did you enjoy the big part, which is Cocaine Bear? Or maybe you thought maybe you having some other ideas out of it? Or perhaps you're just like me, who felt like you wanted more and you just weren't served the full entree of what's going on in this film. And do you think there's going to be sequels? If so, what are some ideas that they can play around? Let me know in the comments down below, and make sure to like and subscribe.